No, it is. It's great. I have that one in my sitting in the car. But how's Roy doing?
I'm good.
Awesome. Well, why don't we see if everybody's got a dream? If we spend about 25 minutes or 30 minutes apiece, we can get each one. Gary's got one right off the bat, and
Oh, good.
yeah, let's.
I'm going to have to take off in half an hour. I've got another meeting tonight.
Oh,
Okay,
we should probably
great.
do Tim's first. You have one, Tim?
Yeah, go ahead,
Well-
Tim. We can do yours first.
Well, I have one. I doubt if I can paste it in though. I tried this.
All right. Well,
before.
email it to me, and I'll paste it in. We'll just do. We'll do Gary's next, and then if either Roy or Charles has one, and you know, Charles, I can always. We can always do yours too, but I mean, we'll try to get. Let's see if we can get everybody's.
Oh, here it is.
Yeah.
It worked this time for some reason.
Yeah. Okay. Fabulous. All right. Let's go, man. I'm ready.
All right. This is called Wild Encounter. I go with some friends to a mountaintop where there's a visitor's center. This is the start of a trail that goes up to the top of the mountain. As we leave the center, I say to somebody, this is the second time I've made the whole trip. I follow a woman out who mentions her theory that you go up on the 1 o'clock trail and come back on the 10 o'clock trail. We start hiking into the fields, and pretty soon we see some animals, buffalo, deer, and then some creatures that turn out to be primates. As soon as we approach, they come up to us, and one jumps on my back. They seem pretty tame, and I scratch their heads like they're dogs. I believe I hear them talking to me, and they say that they're hungry. And my thought is, man, when they talk like that, they become so much more human. Then other animals begin to appear. I discover a fox that is approaching, and then it slinks into the corner of a fenced field. And then I realize a wolf is approaching the fox. The wolf thrusts his head between the wires of a fence and grabs the fox by the head. And then he struggles to get through the fence, the wolf does, keeping hold of the fox. It's a horrible scene.
Okay. Well, what was interesting in this dream too is the now I have not remembered too many dreams with lots of animals in it. I mean, these are dreams that Roy has a lot, but anyway, so it's called the Wild Encounter. Okay. So we go with friends to a mountaintop where there is a visitor's center. Okay, the mountaintop remember, is the place of the high spirit, that beautiful little poem that the Dalai Lama wrote about mountain peaks, but it represents a place of ascent and the high spirit. And this is the start of a trail that is, I go with some friends to mountaintop so it's just called mountaintop.
Well, it's near the top of the mountain. There's a visitor center, and then the trail goes up.
Yeah, it's called mountaintop. So you're at the place of the beginning of the ascent to the peak of the mountain. So this would be really to the peak of the highest place. You know, so it would be the place that the more up you go on this, the more the closer to spirit we get, the farther we are from the valley, which is the place of the feminine and the place of the valley of souls. So anyway, we're at a place which leads to the masculine or to the spiritual side. And this is the start of a trail to the top of the mountain. As we leave the center, I say, this is the second time I've made the whole trip. So we've done this before, but it seems to be very meaningful, and it's only the second time we've done it. Now we follow a woman. So a woman is leading us on this ascent. You know, Now this is interesting too, Tim, because there's been a few dreams that where the woman was on in a high position, and I don't think we've ever figured that out.
Well,
But go
this
ahead.
is a bunch of friends, and they've all gone ahead, and she and I think, of the trailing
Trailing. Okay,
bunch
but
in the group.
you are following a woman who mentions
Yeah.
her theory that you go up on the 1 o'clock trail and come back on the 10. So you go up to the would be the off to the right. You go up to the right, and then come back down from the to the left. You know, isn't that right?
Yeah.
You're gonna veer to the right when you go up, and then when you come down, you're going to go to on the left hand side. So that's pretty interesting. Um, you know, that the fact that the ascent on the right has more to do with the conscious side, and the descent has more to do with the unconscious side. But once you know, the idea is too. This was what Hermes does. Is he goes up to the highest place, and then he needed to do that, but then when he descends, his strength is perfected when he returns to the earth. So you go up somewhat on a conscious ascent, and you come down on an unconscious ascent. But that's what she says, you know, that her theory is you go up on the conscious side, come down on the unconscious side. We start hiking into the fields. So we're going on the trail up. But now here's so we never actually ever reached the peak. This is just
Right.
the theoretical. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Now we start seeing instinctual energies. Okay. Jung always said, when the animals are near, the instincts are near. And these are all very large, magnificent mountain fauna. You know, there's the buffalo, the deer, and then here's the interesting one. Oh, this is so mysterious. Creatures that turn out to be primates. So this I think is like the North American ape, isn't it? It's you're in
It
like
would be.
Montana. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
So it is a ape. Now, wouldn't that be interesting to have a North American primate? It'd be just very interesting. As we approach, they come up to us, and one jumps on my back. They seem pretty tame, and I scratch their heads like dogs. I believe they're talking to me, saying that they're hungry. Okay, now the first animal, you know, when the animals are near, the instincts are there. The first animals we meet are very close to the instincts. Then we meet an animal that is halfway between consciousness and instincts. It's a very primitive consciousness, but it is conscious, and it can communicate with us. Okay. Now, if you could communicate with an animal, I think we would learn a lot. You know, I mean, if we could communicate with animals who could actually speak, and in their very unspoiled vision, you know, Jung said that they are much more holy than us, because they are not, you know, they're very um, noble because they're so whole. You know, I think that if we could talk to an animal, there would be some wisdom that we could get from them. But these just say they're hungry, you know, so they're just you know, saying that they need food. But with the talk, they become so much more human. So we're actually dealing with something that is close to consciousness, but is animal, but is close to the animals too. So it's close to the instinctual world and close to the animal world. Now, after all of these dreams about anima and, somewhat of a sort of a misfire on connecting with the conjunctio of the feminine, now this is very interesting twist. No, when did you have this dream?
Last night, I think.
Oh my God. Isn't this interesting? I mean, as far as your series is concerned, then
Yeah.
other animals begin to appear. Now, here's where it is going to be interesting. Now, this is a horrible scene, but it is also indicative of something. So now, in this paradisal world we live in up till this point, which has been very interesting and very positive, we see a fox approaching. Now, the fox is the most cat-like dog, and it cowers in the corner of a fenced field, and there is a wolf approaching it. So the wolf is the devouring. Now, the wolf is the devouring mother, really it is. And it thrusts its head between the wires of the fence, grabs the fox, and then he struggles to get out of the fence. And keeping hold of the fox, it's a horrible scene. So we see this first thing where the instincts are near, the animals are near, and then we see the talking primates, and then that's the first part of the dream. Okay, then from that, okay, mountaintop, going to this peak, the feminine says go to the right up and go to on the unconscious way on the back end. Then we see the animals, and then we see the talking primates, and then this happens, okay, which this grisly scene, where the wolf, this relentless just constantly hungry, the wolf is at the door. The wolf, throw him to the wolves. I mean, if you're going in a sled and you're being chased by wolves, you try to throw something out to them so that they'll all gather around it and you can escape. In Europe particularly, this was no joke. Wolves were very dangerous, a pack of wolves. And then the wolf seizes this fox. We don't know what the fox represents. The fox is sort of this cleverness, and the fox is a clever animal, an animal that's very clever, and the wolf is an animal that is very stealthy and lethal. So it's this cleverness against the stealthy, lethal side. Now, this is going to be take some iterations to get to, but let's just start with that. That's one iteration that really didn't get us very far. But let's hear what everybody else has to say. Gary, what do you think?
Oh, yeah, I agree. This is going to take some iterations. Well, first off, following the woman, she's going to guide the conscious and says that we're going to come back on the unconscious side. I like that. That the instinctual side has primates, and that the primates, are attempting to communicate is really interesting. And then other animals appear. So the primates weren't, I mean, they were talking, but they weren't doing a lot, and it really makes you wonder what the fox would have done had it been able to actually finish the approach. I mean, the fox's approach is cut short, and it cowers. I mean, it cowers in a corner, it's in great fear. So, there's a cleverness which knows it can fall to stealth and power. And I'm just struggling with this.
Well, yeah, I would say, let me just, from what you're saying, I'm just going to say there's three parts to the dream. The first one is just about the ascent, where the feminine says to go up on the conscious side and come back on the unconscious side. That's the first section of the dream. It stands alone. Okay. The second section of the dream is now, instead of being related to the anima and having problems with the anima, suddenly we are dealing with the instinctual world. So it's the world of the undifferentiated anima. I think the dream is saying, I'm tired of talking about the differentiated anima. I'm going back to square one. We're going to talk about the instinctive life, because the anima is life. She's very differentiated life. I'm going back to instinctual life, and let's talk about that. And the first section is just the encounter of the instinctual, both the very instinctual and then the primates that are somewhat halfway between the instinctive and the human. They're very hungry. So they're hungry, so is the wolf. Now, I love what you said here, Gary, too. There's a fox approaching. Then other animals begin to appear. And a fox is approaching. Okay. Now, right then, we're waiting to see what the fox is going to do. I mean, when a fox comes, it's pretty interesting. And we want to know what, watch its behavior and everything. It's a noble beast. And then suddenly, it is just, it's going to be devoured by really a somewhat of a demonic part of the unconscious, a demonic part of the instinctual world. I think what it says is the instinctual world both feeds us and is also is is very dangerous, and that's why they keep animals in a zoo. Now, Roy, what do you think? I mean, this is something almost down your alley. What do you think about the dream?
A few ideas that come to me. It was interesting where Tim says this is the second time he's made this journey. So somewhere in his memory, he's done this before. That was important to me. Then the 1 through 10 is to me like a cycle, a complete cycle. So the second time he's going through this cycle again. The primate is on his back, like a monkey on my back. It alludes to that, a monkey on my back. And they're hungry. And Tim's able to communicate with him. So whatever the monkey on the back is, they're just hungry, and he's able to feed them. They're not, no problem. But then it gets really strange at the end, because the fox is fenced in. It's sort of not completely wild. And I like your allusion to cleverness. The fox represents cleverness. And the wolf just comes in there and grabs it by its head. So there's some sort of anxiety, and I guess everybody has that, the existential anxiety that something's out there, and it can just grab you out of nowhere. You're helpless. That's just a few thoughts I had.
Another thing I'm thinking about is the difference between these different animals. So the buffalo and the deer are ungulates, and they kind of take care of themselves out in the field. And the dog animals eat each other. And the primate comes to me and says, feed me.
Mhm.
So there's this kind of approach of the wild toward the human that ends up with this pretty insistent request. So it's almost like the ape is getting on my back and it's going to become me.
Mhm. Yeah, it seems that there is an attempt of the instinctive world and consciousness to meet in the middle, you know. But at the end, what happens is there is something that is also killing instinct in us, and that's this wolfish aspect. Now, I would say the wolfish aspect in us that is killing the instinct, the becoming conscious of the instinct in us. And I say the becoming conscious of the instinct in us is the becoming conscious of life in us, which is the becoming conscious of the anima, because she is life. She's this mother nature, the feminine world. And there's this idea of rather than let's talk about all the connotations and the sexual tension that's involved with relationships with the feminine, we're not going to talk about the feminine anymore, because what we're really talking about is conscious ego consciousness and the source of life doing the same thing the anima, you and the anima would do, but we're going to throw the sexual tension out. Okay, so now we're just going to approach the same problem we've been approaching in the previous streams, but now we are going to do it without sexual tension in there involved. And so we're going to talk about the instinctual world and the conscious world. And now this was all precipitated by the feminine inviting us to, or at least is suggesting to us how to make the ascent and the descent. And after she has announced this, suddenly, and she's leading us. Now remember, the feminine is the anima, is the guide of souls. So she is leading us here to this field where we see these instinctual aspects. She wants us to learn something here, okay? And what we start out learning, but I think that the last part of the dream is very similar to the crazy woman dream, that there is something within us that is wolfish and is killing of the instinct, or in other words, there's an ego or a shadow aspect within us that is now see we were just talking about this, my wife and I eat so healthy up until about 7 or 8 or 9 o'clock, and then when I get tired, suddenly I start binging out, because the shadows come up, and that's what's is the sensate shadow of me. So anyway, I think that there is a wolfish thing in us that is attacking instinct, which is an analogy to the feminine world. So I think this is is an analogy to all the other dreams that we've had in the dream series, but it's taking this very novel approach. What do you think, Charles? You've been very pretty on target when you're not sleepy. Last time, I really like some of the things you said last time, and I want to talk about the red eyes of yourself. Are you there, Charles?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I am pretty dang sleepy today. I was like playing basketball when it was at its absolute, like when the sun was at its peak, and I was just getting roasted out there. But I don't know. I'm still kind of chewing on this dream. I think that the things Roy brought up are, that's kind of where a lot of my attention went. The the fact that it was his second time doing this, and you know, I thought the wording was interesting too, that the woman had some theory that, you know, you go up at the 1 o'clock and then come back at the 10 o'clock, but that it was worded as like it's a theory of hers, that it's not actually certain. But I don't know. It's, and the primates make me think of some sort of I don't know. It's almost like the primates represent like the psyche itself, because they're like the most conscious animal, and that, you know, they're the ones that are able to actually speak and say that they're hungry, and
They
that,
get more human as they speak. I mean, there's this
right, and you know, like, it just makes me think of the, I don't know, just realizing that the psyche is alive makes me, it feels analogous to
yeah.
being able to communicate with this primate, being like, whoa, it's like, it is human like and alive and conscious. But yeah, like I said, still chewing on this one. I'm not sure if it is just sort of talking about like uh, a second half of life journey, or what. I don't know.
Well, the spiritual journey, the thought of the spiritual journey, seems to precipitate this. But when Tim, when you say, or when it says in the dreams that this is your second time doing it, it isn't the second time you've seen the animals and the primates and that yet. It was just the second time going up mountaintop, right?
Yeah, on this
Yeah.
trail.
Okay. Now so this is our second attempt at a journey. Now a woman is leading us and is giving us the idea of how we should approach this. We need to go up on the conscious side, and when we after we reach the pinnacle or the peak, then we return um, on the side of psyche. Here we go up, uh, using ego and all its powers to get to the top. But when we descend, we need to use the powers of psyche. You know, when we come back to the earth, to ascend to the heights, we need this alertness of the logos and of the spiritual masculine world. But we need to come back via the feminine. Okay, and the instinctive psychic world. Now that is then she's the guide of souls, and so we set out. And what do we meet there? I think this is a real restatement of the whole problem that we faced in every other of the dreams. And I think the dream maker is saying, okay, we're not getting it. I'm going to approach it in a different way. Okay. And the way I'm going to approach it is I am going to not bring these beautiful maidens and nymphs in. I'm going to bring in who they represent. And what they represent is life. And this is what Renata Daniel told me. I had this um, when I go down into the descent, at the end, this very beautiful goddess, Inanna, is not wearing any clothes. And what I said to her is, what does it feel like to be inside that body? And she says, there is nothing sexual about my body. She says, you make it that way. So that's happening in you. It doesn't happen in me. And then Renata says that what you're really looking at is life. And that is what excites the male ego, is that it is viewing life in the feminine body, because the breasts represent the nurturing aspect of life, and the hips represent the creative aspect. So the whole feminine body represents the renewal of life. You know, now you can say, oh, it's also sexual, but it really is based on of the highest meaning. You know, it really is the idea of this. But anyway, in this point, what we're seeing here are what the body of the feminine actually represents, and it represents the inexhaustible joy of life invincible, which is represented by the instinctual world, which also represents the archetypal world and the instinctive body world, which really is where all wisdom lies. This one woman who does this cranial sacral therapy, the guy that's really the guru of it, says, you can ask the body any question and it will give you the truth. It'll be truth that you've never heard before. You know, so anyway, the feminine is introducing us to life, and she's life. Okay. And then we get this wonderful development of the primates. You got to go here, Tim, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll finish it next time, but I think we'll have a lot more thoughts about it, don't you?
Yeah.
But we're getting somewhere.
One thing that occurs to me is this energy is becoming more and more diversified.
Yes.
So
Wider.
we're seeing more of the feminine figures, so that they are being distinguished, and then these animals come along and they are being distinguished.
Yeah, your
So-
consciousness is widening. I mean,
Yeah.
the consciousness is widening. Well, we'll finish it up next time you're here, Tim, but I think
Okay.
we got a good start on it.
You guys are great. Thanks much.
Okay, all right, sure, thank you. All right, just a second, I'm going to answer a very important question from my wife. Can I open the remote control on the TV? The batteries are dead. Okay. Okay. Beautiful. I mean, now I think this is a wonderful dream. I mean, I love the fact that it's following all these anima dreams with miss meetings. You know, a way it just didn't come about. Gary or Roy or Charles, do you have any more comments? And then we'll look at Gary's dream. Did you guys have any more comments on it?
I don't
we
know.
can finish it Wednesday.
To me,
Go
it's like, I think what you're saying, is helping to pull it together. But it is like, it's like the fox is something that's drawn to him and maybe should be drawn to him. And yet it's under threat from another instinctual aspect, which is
The wolfish part. I think the wolfish part is like the husbands in the crazy woman dream that want to put the feminine world in an insane asylum. You know, I think that's the wolfish part of us, which is really killing the feminine. You know, and it's also killing the instinctual world. You know, so it's a that's what I'm kind of my vibes on it. Roy, do you have any thoughts? Any more thoughts?
Well, you don't think of humans as being that instinctual, and I can't think of animals that do that. Animals don't put the female in an institution, so I don't understand how those men are instinctual. I don't see the connection.
No, it does seem to have the same themes as the as some of the other dreams, but in a very novel, new way of speaking. Charles, did you have any final comments on it?
No, not really.
Okay, well, let's start on Gary's dream, and then Charles, if you have a dream or Roy has a dream, we can get going on this, but let's try to work on this Gary's dream till about 8, a little after 8. So I'm going to put it in here, and Gary, why don't
Well, I
you
actually
go?
posted it. Well,
Oh, you
okay.
already did. Okay.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
well, that's okay.
Okay.
You want me to go ahead and read it?
Yes, please. Mhm.
Okay, I call it the lab man. I'm with someone who's leading me to various labs. One lab is out in the field. He takes us in and does something, and then we leave. Another is in a university. And I think there were some other labs too. I just don't remember where they were. When we go into this lab, an instructor across the hall calls out something disparaging, but I think mostly friendly to him. He then takes us to an airfield where we get into an old Piper Cub. We begin our takeoff, but it's not going well. And this runway is extremely long, and I think it's slightly uphill. It takes almost the entire runway to get into the air. The plane feels very underpowered. As soon as we are in the air, he heads for this cove of trees and attempts to weave between them. We first damage one wing on a tree and then the other wing. He tells me not to worry because, at this point, I don't think it's going to fly. And he heads for these ropes that are simply hanging in the air. We become entangled in these and slide slowly to the ground. That's it.
All right. Well, this is again one that has at least it's got 2 parts. Okay, and the first part is just about the labs themselves. We are with someone who is leading us to various labs. So it's someone is taking ego consciousness to the place where things are transformed, where there is some transformation, So it's almost like he's taking us to the place of which he calls might not really be the place. Maybe he's kind of not exactly an expert at it, but it is the place of transformation. So, it's some kind of alchemical transformation. And transformation is basically taking the base material and turning it into divine substance. That's what is really transformed, is we take ego and we turn it into we take ego consciousness and we turn it into self consciousness. In other words, we take the ordinary everyday ego and we unite it with the divine world, not to be divine, but to create renewal and the new thing. See, the divine world, life is a becoming, changing thing. It's the whole idea of transformation, is to constantly create new forms and that have never been seen before, and that's how, that's what alchemy is all about. It's the underground religion of Europe, and it's a living religion. How do we create this new symbol? It's like the Grail, blessed. So anyway, the first one it takes us to is in a field. So and he does something there, so it's in a more nature-like. So first he takes us to nature, and there's a transformation there, at least an attempt to introduce us to the place of transformation in nature. And then in the second place, he takes us to the Temenos, the place of that's isolated from everything. You know, this is isolated from the outside world, and he's taking us there. It's the place of all knowledge, all wisdom, and he's taking us there. He has a lab there too. So, and then someone across the hall yells something disparaging. So there is an aspect there of consciousness that is saying, you know, you guys are, you know, wasting your time. You know, there's something you could be more, you could do something more productive than this. Well, there's nothing productive in the outer world's view of inner transformation. It doesn't earn you more money, doesn't build buildings, doesn't do anything. I mean, it's something. So now that's the first part of the dream. Okay, so that's the first part. Okay, the second part of the dream is we go to an airfield. We're going to a place of ascent. Okay. And yet, reminds me of Dawn's dreams. You know, there's not much lift in this old Piper Cub. You know, there's just not much lift in it. Yet now this reminds me too of Charles' dreams about the pilot, you know, but this pilot is not a very good pilot, or his plane is not a very good plane. And, you know, he takes the whole runway just to take off. And then he, you know, he loses, this reminds me of these bush pilots in Alaska. You know, he loses enough. I mean, they never worry about anything for some reason. They just, you know, whatever they come in and they don't have much runway, you know, they start to do this, you know. And my friend told me that as he was doing this, one of his wings fell off, but he still managed to land, you know. And so then he gets out and he's got some duct tape, and, you know, puts a couple things in that he couldn't bolt down, but uses duct tape, and so that they could take off later again. But anyway, he doesn't seem to be concerned that he's weaving in and out of these trees, flying very dangerously. You know, I mean, when you're flying, you're supposed to lift up above all the obstacles, fly over them, and then land somewhere, you know. But here he's flying right into the obstacles, and they happen to be rooted obstacles. So what we can't get much lift from the ground. If it was me, I'd say this is positive. I don't need to get up very high, you know. But there's still something in us that wants to go up high. Yet we don't really have the ability anymore to go up high, and so we start to fly into a danger. I mean, our vehicle is not adequate, and it just runs into the trees, and it damages both wings. So this is now this old Piper Cub that is underpowered and doesn't have much lift, can't get us up off the ground. You know, now he's not worried because there's a net that's going to catch us. You know, some type of a rope net. You know, so it's not I mean, he's sort of anticipating the fact that this thing is not very, you know, that he can't get it off the ground. He's encountered this before, you know. And let's see. Well, that's it. Okay, that's a start. Now, we haven't really gotten too far with it. What do you think, Roy?
Oh yeah, this to me, what I'm getting from this is, we're talking about the lab. We're not talking about theorizing. See, you're going out in the lab, but you're out in the field and you don't seem to be paying attention to much what's going on. Then you go to the university and you use the word disparage. which kind of means this is of little worth. And then you're going to go to the airfield. Well, you're going to have to pay attention to this, because if you're in a little Piper Cub and it doesn't look like the thing's going to take off and it's going to crash in the trees and all that, you're going to pay attention. You're going to remember that. Now, this is about life through experience. You know, you're just out there winging it. And I think you got a good experience there. And it turned out good.
Yeah, that's fabulous, right? That's
That
amazing.
is really good.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, that is one thing in both labs. There seems to be sort of a lack of attention. We're sort of just vaguely aware what's going to happen, and it's not experimenting. He's doing something that is actually, it's not theory. It is something physically is going to occur that is going to definitely have some effect. One out in the field in nature, one in the university. So you go to the field and you go to the university. Those are sort of two opposite things, but there are things happening in both sides. Now, the second part of us just winging it, that's a wonderful way to put it, which we were doing literally. Yet our vehicle of lift. Okay, now what would lift have to do with? Lift could also have to do with the lift of the imaginal world. I mean, our vehicle's underpowered, so it needs more horsepower or something, because we're not going to be able to. And why would the lab man? This is the same guy, isn't it?
Yeah, same guy.
He's both the pilot and the lab guy. So after he goes to the two labs, the one in the university, one in here, then suddenly, what is the purpose of this airplane trip? Does it say?
No, I have no idea.
Then he takes us to an airfield. So this must be the third lab.
Yeah, I think
The
it is.
third lab. Okay. The third lab has to do with the ability to lift us away from the earth, you know, somehow. Now, I don't think that's a very good way to put it, but this is the third lab. We have to figure out what that means. Charles, do you have any ideas? Or I know you're kind of probably hot and tired.
I don't know exactly. I think the really long runway is interesting, and just the fact that, I don't know, he has difficulty taking flight, and that when he does get off the ground, he just gets caught up in trees and, you know, ropes that are hanging in the air. I don't know. There's a problem with like ascent and getting into the more spiritual realms. It looks like, I don't know, because there's like groundwork going on with the labs, but you know, getting into the like higher realms and getting a
Yes.
higher perspective.
Yeah, it's very
seems to be a problem.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Go ahead, Charles. Am I cutting you off?
No.
Yeah. Well, the idea is the first lab has to do with nature. The second lab has to do with the collective unconscious. You know, the stored wisdom of all of mankind. And the third has to do with transcending gravity, transcending the earth. And there seems to be a lack of we don't, his third lab is the one that's the most unsuccessful. course, we don't even know the first two because, as Roy said, we didn't pay much attention. But at least this one got our attention. Because I've had this
I was
happen.
terrified.
Yeah, I've had this happen. This guy this actually happened to me. He was landing in Ashwaubenon, Wisconsin, and they had a mountain there. And then, right after you come to the mountain, the runway's right here. And he makes too quick of a descent. And so he's going too fast and he hits the runway and it starts to fishtail, like this. And he knows that the plane's just going to roll unless he takes off. So he guns it again, and it's trying to fly up in the air. And then over here are a bunch of high tension wires. So then he banks like this and he's going like that, and we're just kind of sputtering, just like in that Piper Cub. And this drunk guy in the back is shaking him, saying, "Hey, what are you doing?" Don't talk to the pilot. But anyway, the idea is it really does get our attention. But the idea here is that if we do not have an adequate vehicle of lifting ourselves to the stars, we're just going to end up crashing. So there's an idea here of that there's something. Okay, now see here. You guys tell me what I'm just got some possibilities. First of all, is it saying that we need to be more spiritual and yet we can't be more spiritual because we don't have an adequate vehicle? Or does it say, what do you think it's saying in that section? What do you think, Roy? I mean, is it saying that we need to be more spiritual, but what does that mean to be more spiritual? And
I'm coming from a different place.
Yeah, okay.
I'm
great.
saying that you're naturally going to be spiritual if you just live life. But if you get in a university and you get all with that rational crowd, you don't stand a chance in the world because you're going to explain everything away.
The disparaging man, what is the disparaging man is really what's holding back the aircraft, don't you think? So the disparaging man in us is what do you think? How is that tie in with what you're saying, Roy, or not? The disparaging man.
The disparaging part is the theorizing and the rational attitude.
Yes.
That's it's worthless.
Mm-hmm.
How many people reached a spiritual place before the Enlightenment? We're talking about thousands of years of humankind. Well, millions. And now modern man, he's obsessed with rationalization and theorizing and all that. That's a disparaging thing. That to me it's disparaging. That's what he's talking about.
Yeah, I think we're getting very close here now. Okay. The idea is that this lab man is trying to do what really for ego and for the self is complete magic. The alchemical transformation is absolute magic. It cannot be found in nature. It can't be created by men, and it won't be found in nature. It could only be found through the dialogue between man and nature, that this creates it. It's total magic that the lab man is dealing with. But then we hear the disparaging voice within us that says, that is just hocus pocus, it has nothing to do with reality. And then the third part of the dream is showing us what we're like without magic. We just are never going to leave the earth. We're always going to be trapped. If we try, we're going to crash. So what I think the third part of the dream is saying what every fairy tale says, and what most dreams say, that that the ego will not allow us to separate ourselves from the ordinary. The only thing that's going to separate us from ordinary is the magic of the symbol that is absolute psychic magic. What the synchronistic magic, by the way, you know, when what Jung says, what the ancients called magic, we call psyche. And what does the ego call magic and psyche? It calls it, you know, total illusion. This is an illusory thing. What do you think, let's say, J.P. Morgan Chase thinks about alchemical or meditation, action, imagination, or dream work, or anything like that? You know, it would be the disparaging voice. That's not going to stop your check from bouncing, you know. You know, it has nothing to do with debits and credits, you know. So this disparaging voice within us that tells us this magic is, the psyche is not real. That voice that says the psyche is not real is then displayed in the third part of the dream. When the disparaging voice is in the upper, has the upper hand, our Piper Cub is underpowered and will never get anywhere. We'll never lift off from the earth. So what do you think, Gary? I mean, I'm really thinking that there is something within us that, now it certainly is within me, you know, an aspect in me that in everyone that is doubting.
It's all, you know, it all just seems like pre-consciousness. Like, you know, I thought the wing was like a really good description. It's like, we're going to these various labs, but it's like, I'm not really taking a part in the proceedings. So it's
Yes.
like my knowledge, my awareness, my consciousness has to be very low. And yet, you know, it's like, it's almost like Tim's dream, where it's like, you know, this is the second time. Well, this is the first time. And the first time's just, you know, it's life. It's not going to go well. But it's like being led through all the pieces and okay, and here's where we lift off, you know, and it's you know, almost wonder if he doesn't know what's going to happen because the vehicle isn't ready yet. And yet, you know, it's like, how do you increase awareness? How do you increase ability? Do you study it or do you try it and fail?
You have to be seized by it. I think that's what Tim or Roy was saying. We're not being seized by it. We're just there, sort of no emotional connection, no saying, no revelations have occurred. We're not being seized by it. We're there sort of absent-mindedly, you know. And when we are seeing the greatest magic in the universe, you know, the creation of the evolution of the God image, or within us anyway, the uniting of the inner worlds and the outer worlds in our the temple of wisdom, and so now the wisdom of the depths has found a place of occupancy in ego consciousness. You know, not that the ego is wise or anything, but it has created the divine child in the symbol, you know, which is then the you know, we're creating our own personal myth. Don't you think religions are amazingly magical? You know, I mean, I think every one of these dreams, when I read this, I the one Tim had and the one you had, there's just certain lines in it that give me chills because they are so profound, you know, and I know this came from that world and is speaking to me. And yet, is it seizing me? And if it doesn't seize me, as it didn't do in the first two labs, and then the disparaging voice, it seems to be our judgment of it, ego's judgment of it, is to ridicule it and to say, this is bunk, you know, and
You know, I hear you. And yet at the same time, like the last stream of mine that we did, you know, that had like an entire affect on my practice. And I'm able to get deep, you know, and there's like a increased feeling of confidence. So maybe, you know, like our dreams are both inflationary and deflationary. So that was maybe an inflationary one. And this is the deflationary response, you know.
very demanding. They are, it is so demanding, you know,
Yeah.
of us. You know, in other words, maybe it was looking for a response from us, you know, as that book Paul Tillich had, that it becomes the dream, all we have that is real experience of the divine. Do we have, and can you guys tell me where you have experienced personally the divine outside of a dream?
Oh, I know.
I don't know. I mean, I think, what do you think, Roy?
Well, that is interesting that Gary said. The other dream I think he's referring to was that guy shook him in the drugstore. Well, that's an experience that you're alive in. And that's all we really have is our experience. That's all that's really real. And so in the airplane, the point I'm trying to make is he was alive in the experience, and it ended well. And that's really the God. That's all there is. That's the greatest thing that can happen to us, to be alive in an experience.
In the
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
In the
at least
present.
it got us thinking, you know. I mean, before, I mean, the only thing I don't think it's saying anything really critical about us, but it's just saying that it maybe expected a little more dramatic effort on our part. You know, I don't know what, but
Yeah,
you
more
know,
attention.
yeah, it's more, yeah, and more of a ritualized thanks of it, maybe I mean, this is the whole idea that they tell me, if you want me to become more real, then you need to become more real with me. You need to show that what I produce for you is alive. And if you just treat it as an intellectual curiosity and don't, you know, just say, yeah, that was kind of cool, you know, and you don't find anything in it that seizes you and demands a response, you know, that just absolutely we have no choice in. We're compelled to. That's what it's really asking us to do, not just to take a passing. That's pretty neat.
Well, I can, you know, I'll give you an example. Like I do that Kali meditation pretty much every day. Before that, I do the Kundalini to kind of, you know, get in the right state. But now, the other thing I do is like when I go on my bike rides on the Wabash, you know, it's like this gravel trail. You know, I do this exercise where I'm breathing into the root chakra, and then you know I try to breathe in like you know the essence of her, you know, and it's like it's weird because you can get into you know some changed states. It's really hard to hold it for any period of time. You know, you start and then you forget and you're back in the normal state and you're like, oh yes, I'm supposed to be doing this, and then you try it again and again. But I mean, I think you know I think the work is you know taking these things that we do as exercises and finding ways to make it real in our everyday world, you know?
Well, I think as far as the dreams are concerned, that that dream is a living being, you know, and if we don't treat it as a living being, the next dream is going to be a little critical. Now, I don't mean, meditation is very important, but the Jung said the idea of meditation is really to lessen ego so that the psyche and the anima can speak, and so while we're conscious, it is more alive in our conscious world. You know, he says that's what it's supposed to do. It's not for the ego to say, I want to become a dewdrop in the cosmic sea and melt back in to the pleroma. You know, I mean, that sometimes is what happens in Eastern religions. You know, is that the thing is they don't want ego just to let its light become less harsh, so that the light of the inner world becomes more visible. It wants to snuff the light out of ego at all. It doesn't even care about the images. You know, and the idea of lessening the light of ego is to make the images of dream and active imagination more discernible, because they certainly can't be discerned when the ego's light is so harsh. But so in our meditations, that's, at least in Europe, that's what we should be doing. In the East, they sometimes not I don't think in China, and I don't think in Japan, but there are places in India where they want the ego to just become a burnt string and to disappear, so that I mean, basically, in Buddhism, you know, they say, I'm going to shut up after this. You know, they say, you know, the Hindus say, Tattvam Asi, thou art that you are the mystery that you seek to know. You know, there's an Om Mani Padme Hum. The mystery we seek is in this world. Okay. Now that's a very worldly wisdom, you know, but there's some aspects where they say, the Buddhists say, yes, you Tattvam Asi, thou art that. But the problem is there is no you and there is no that, you know. So the box that contained the you and the that just disappears, and now there's nothing there, you know, but shunyata, you know, this divine emptiness. But I guess the whole idea, I think, is that the only reason I brought that up is that the meditations are very good, but they don't serve the dream. Do you have any comments on that, Gary? I'm not trying to.
Oh, well,
Down
you know,
anything,
so
but-
I go back and forth. Like, you know, I do meditations where really, you know, you're just trying to end all
They're
thought, you know?
beautiful. I mean, they're absolutely beautiful.
No, I mean, so that Kali one, that's almost more like an active meditation
Yes.
or an active imagination. And in that one, you know, it's taking, you know, from Eastern religions and stuff, you know, Shakti, and then like, how do you place the gods within you? You know, how do you embody the you know, but it all has to be done through feeling, you know, and so what you're trying to do is manifest very deep feelings during this. So, I mean, that's that one. But then, you know, I do regular meditations too. Really, you're just trying to go into the void. And you know, I can see it both ways. You know, I can see exactly what you're talking about. You know, because the problem is that, well, the problem with active imagination in general is we don't know when we have the ego manifesting something versus the subconscious versus the unconscious. What we want is the unconscious, and we don't know, necessarily what we're getting. So it's so hard, because, one way it's what we want, and the other way it's inflation,
Yeah.
and I just,
Well, I mean, the idea is that you thought, I mean, I think the dream was being somewhat unjust, and I like it when the dream kicks my ass. I really do.
oh, no, I don't think
I
it's
love it
unjust. I
when
mean,
it's
it's
very
like,
demanding
yeah,
because I know that I'm sort of a dilettante and I need to get my ass kicked, because does it seize us? Does it seize, you know, God is trying to stir you in
you're
every
right.
way you can be stirred. I mean, that's what it told me. What do you think, Roy? I mean, you're the voice of reality here. Oh, you're muted.
Uh, there's a two-way street. Do you go looking for the gods, or do you let the gods come looking for you? Now, which one do you think is going to be the most profound experience? And I mean, personally, I haven't had much luck with meditation and all that stuff where I'm going to look for the gods. I'll let them come find me. And that's always been very effective. I mean, when they come knocking on your door, you notice.
Yeah, and these dream images. I don't think the only thing I would say, Gary, is what the dream. Where did we even start with this? I mean, let's go back to the dream, okay? That there is a magical thing that happens in the field and happens in the university. Then we hear the disparaging voice. Then we go in and we see kind of what happens when the disparaging voice has some a control. And yet, as Roy, and not Roy, I want you to state this again, but it did end well. It was a good experience, but all we did was sort of fly horizontally, experience a lot of danger, and then get caught in a net, and it did get our attention. It seized us.
That's the whole point. That's the whole
Yes.
point. And it's a baby step. You're supposed to start with baby steps. You're not supposed to start flying over the trees, for God's sake.
There you go. This is the man of the alchemical meditation. Or alchemical transformation. He shows us one in the field. He goes and does something, but we don't even know what he does. We're just there with him. The second one, he goes to the university, and we hear the disparaging voice. The third one, we are participating with him. Okay, Roy? The third one, there's no escaping it. We get in the vehicle with him. Okay, so now we are going on in the vessel of transformation. We're contained in it. Yet it is a baby step, but it took us a long way to get off the runway, but we finally did get off. So there's three parts of the three transformations. The first one is in nature. Nothing, we're just sort of there. The second one's in the university. We're just sort of there. Disparaging voice. The third one, we're actually participating in. I think you're right, Roy.
I mean, compare this dream to a lot of your meditations. This dream is where the gods found you. They did this. Now, compare the profoundness of that to your personal meditations where you go trying to find the gods.
Well, it's so weird. I think because, I think like generally, like the really deep experiences just seem to happen. You don't find them. So, I guess I have to agree with, somehow they just hit you out of the blue. And yet, the affect of the dream, it feels right because it feels like where I'm at. Everything sort of feels like baby steps, and so it's like, yeah, so this dream to me, could just be sort of a report. Like, okay, here's where you're at. You're at the baby steps,
Mhm. I think one thing that might be interesting, at least it is interesting for me, because I do some pretty deep meditation. I spend probably of an hour, I spend 20 minutes just getting there, or 30 minutes, just like you are. But what I'm doing is I'm combining it with a dream. So I'm lowering the level of ego, and then I start asking questions about a dream. Like
Mhm.
this morning, I asked about, there was this great big, we were on a great big in an auditorium, and the anima and the little girl are not sitting in the stands. They're sitting outside the railing of the stadium over here. And I just see that beautiful little girl body. And I said, oh, be careful. There, she doesn't have anything holding her up there. And this is so dangerous. Why are you doing this? And so I kind of went in and asked them what it was all about, and it was just that I'm in one world, they're in another, you know, and we can't be in the same stadium together. But I mean, I just think that combining maybe a Kali meditation with one of your dreams,
Yeah, no, that's a good
and
idea.
just
And so then you just do dialogue and stuff with it,
that
or
at
you try
that
to,
point, yeah.
yeah,
But I
yeah.
also have what you have, and this is what are you really I do, you know, is okay, here's the things I saw in a meditation just like you had. First, I see a buffalo, white buffalo, some wild turkeys, and a goat. Okay. Then I see death skulls, and they just are turning and rotating, and finally it's a canine skull, and it starts to turn, until I see the bottom, and then I see the elderly young sitting in power. And now that was in a meditation, and that's what Barbara Hanna calls the sudden drops, where you're doing something and then that just comes in. But just make sure you write those images down, even however random
Yeah,
they might
yeah.
be.
Oh, yeah, that sounds pretty
Well,
amazing.
let's revisit this dream on Wednesday. I'm going to actually sit down with it and go through it. Roy or Charles, do you have a dream that you want to introduce?
Wait, yeah, I always have one, but
Okay, well then, Roy, you're
I mean,
up
if
next after Charles, and you have
yeah, I
one.
mean, if Roy wants to share one, that's okay. But,
Yeah, go ahead, Charles.
okay. 1 second here.
Can you post it?
I don't have
He's on his
the
phone, so
yeah.
he's a little.
Trying
Oh,
to type it out on my phone.
Yeah, well, I can.
It's little. I'll just try to.
Well, we'll
I'll try
start with
try
your
to
dream
be
next
very
time, Roy.
clear.
Then.
So I'm not sure which one I want to share here. It's been really hard to remember my dreams recently. But so okay, I'll share this one because I've been hovering over this dream for such a long time. I really just wanted to share it. Okay, so I remember being in a large room, like a garage, and I went over to a chair that was in the room, and I pull off the seat cushion, and in order to go down into a lower level of whatever building I was in, like through the chair, it's like there's a passageway underneath the seat cushion. But I lift up the seat cushion, and there is shiny, reflective, I describe it as holographic looking currency or bills, money. And my grandfather is, he's there. I don't see him or anything, but he's somehow there. And I just hear him say, do you think I'm just made out of money or something? And I write that the whole point of the dream seems to be that my cousin Brad is nearby. He's having some sort of psychic or psychotic attack. And he says that he wants to trigger a catastrophic event to relive over and over again. And he's saying that there are people that he wants to fight with. And his mother, my aunt, is reporting this to me through some sort of telepathic means. So at one point I see a magazine ad for a show called The Pool that had my grandfather in it. He's on the cover and he's in the show. And he's standing there in a robe, but he has the bottom half of the robe open, and so he's exposed. And he's next to some beautiful woman by a luxurious swimming pool. And I look at the cover of the magazine, and he sort of gets embarrassed and says, "Oh no, that's a lousy show. Don't watch that." And that was the dream.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah, the first part's
This
a little
is going to be
confusing,
another going to take a few iterations, but I'll tell you something as we go through these. I mean, these are. Let's just go through it. Okay. It's a large room like a what was it?
like a garage.
Like a garage.
Park
So
your
it's a
cars.
very large room, like a very large garage. And we go up to a chair and we pull off the seat cushion because in the past we've been ordered to descend to a lower level through this chair. Okay. All right. So you're aware of that, apparently, that is a way to descend. So somehow through the seat of something, we can descend to a lower, we can descend into the unconscious. So it's sort of a portal to the lower world. So a place where we would normally have a seated position is secretly a portal to another world. So it's almost like a magic throne or something, some kind of a magic royal throne. I don't know. I mean, it's definitely is magical. But then we lift up the cushion and we just see shining psychic energy, which is holographic. So, holographic means that it is three-dimensional, even though it's two-dimensional. Even though it's two-dimensional, when you look at it, it's three-dimensional. Okay. And your grandfather is there. Now, can you tell us anything about your grandfather?
He's a businessman.
Well, he's apparently
yeah.
one of the most successful men in the family, isn't he?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah. But he's the father of your mother?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Is he still alive?
Yeah, he's alive. People are saying that he's going to live for basically forever.
How old is he?
He's like 85 or something.
85, so he's not that
like
old.
the healthiest person in our family.
Yeah. What does he think of you?
He used to, I don't know.
Do you have a relationship with him?
Yeah, I used to live with him.
Oh.
He really did not understand me and thought that I was very strange and
just
thought that I was
judged you.
afraid of everything and kind of always poked fun at me for being a hermit. And yeah.
So he's kind of a man's man, and he's not very he's not very compassionate, not very well. Anyway, that's neither here nor there because he's not being mean. He's just the way he is. You know, he just can't figure it out. You know, why can't you be more like me? You know, I have no problems. Anyway, let's not go there. Grandfather says, do you think that I'm just made of money? So in other words, is this psychic energy, when it appears, apparently has something to do with him. Okay. And then so that's the first part of the dream. Okay. First, the first part of the dream is the magic throne that leads us to a lower world. Somehow we want to go down there, but instead of a hole, all we find is all this psychic energy. This psychic energy is related to the grandfather, yet he thinks that we are stealing it from him. You know, so the ancestral world is saying that what we are taking is not a psychic energy of our own creation, but we are only we just continually are using the psychic energy of the past or the collective unconsciousness, and we aren't creating our own psychic energy. We're just taking the site. Now, I think that's a point there, but I want to hear what more people have to say. I'm going to shut up right now. But the cousin Brad, that's this other part where he wants to trigger a catastrophic event. This is we've moved on from the first part. This is, and so from that something to do with someone who wants to trigger catastrophic events and wants to fight with people. And his mother is reporting us to this telepathically. Now that's completely independent of the first part of the dream. And then the third part of the dream, which is also completely independent, but all three of these are absolutely related, even though they're dependent, is the grandfather appears in a robe which exposes himself next to a very beautiful woman. And we're going to need to go into that a little bit more. Let's just hear a little bit of what Gary and Roy has to say, and then we'll try to finish this next time. Go ahead, Gary. Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, that within the garage, within this large building, he has a seat at the table of the psyche, and that it can be entered just by lifting this cushion. You know, he has a way through. So he has access. And yet he knows that some of this is sort of by grace. I mean, he hasn't done the work that, that should go with the access that he has. So, there's a complaint from the ancestors of like, look, you need to work on this too. Do you think I'm just made of money? Well, money is energy, and it's like, you have to put your own energy into this as well. You can't just take this access for granted without making your own contribution. You're living off your ancestors, your connections. That's how I see it at this point.
What do you think, Roy? I mean, you're a very good reader of Charles here.
Yeah, I'm sort of getting, the sins of the father. There's a lot of ancestor stuff here. It might have got deposited in Charles. Somehow there's a lot of anger and resentment, and it's stopping him from growing. And he's got to discover that. I don't know how he's going to do it, but you just can't project it on somebody, your grandfather and let your feelings overwhelm you. You know, you have to discover that what is really me and what isn't me, and get into something that works.
Yeah. You both expressed it better than me because I was thinking the same thing. I mean, this idea that the father world keeps sending us these wonderful images, and yet, okay, we open the dream box, and we want to get a dream, and then we see it's the psychic energy, but it's not our psychic energy. It's the psychic energy of the father world. You know, it's silver though, so it's somewhat related to the moon too. So it's related to the mother, you know, and then the grandfather, not the father, but the father of the mother. So it really, as the mother, as the son of the mother is related to the feminine world, the father of the mother is related to the feminine world too, you know. And he is saying, do you think I'm just made of money? In other words, do you think that the dream maker, is just, you can just keep coming and coming and coming, and you don't create anything yourself out of what I gave you last time, you know? I mean, you're just coming back for withdrawals, 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 but you never make any deposits, you know. I mean, I think that's the complaint. And then we're going to have to figure out what this catastrophic event means, and then the deal about the father. But Roy, I think you have a dream ready, don't you?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, if you can email it to me, I like to kind of, Roy, I think the series of your dreams, I would like to at some point get in a row and just let's review them. Maybe just one whole period, just look at all your dreams in,
No,
in
I agree. That'd be
sequence.
incredible.
Yeah, I think it is because they are quite a story. And I have never quite experienced this wonderful level of almost this wordless relationship. Charles, did you have any comments on the dream? And then we'll pick it up again on Wednesday.
No, we can just talk about it Wednesday.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you, guys. And it's just 2 sleeps, and we'll start up again. Okay. We'll see y'all later. Thank you. Have Gary and Charles
See ya.
and Roy. Bye-bye now.